Hey, welcome back. This is episode 4 of Pixel Platformer, and we're going to get some animations happening. We're going to bring in some sprites because so far this is very much a working prototype. It can jump, it can move, it flips the sprite as well. And so you would have had a choice. You could either bring in sprites from another source, sprite sheets, or or you might have created your own sprites. And so I want to just put I just want to put note of one thing too here is we notice that I can jump and push myself up and over that edge, and that's because I have a capsule collider. It would work similar like that I just did there, and you might not like that in your game. You might want to be like either you make the jump or you don't make the jump, but you can't kind of slide up top like that. And if you don't like that feature, you could try tweaking this and using a box collider. But for me, I kind of like that feature, and we're going to keep it for now. So let's get some sprites. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go down into our assets, and we're going to bring in our sprites. So wherever yours are on your computer, we're going to bring those in. So here what we can do is import new asset. And I'm going to go into my downloads is where they are. And in my downloads here is where I have them. These are just different sprite sheets for my bot, I'm calling it, kind of a robot. So I got 4 different basic animations here. So I'm going to bring all of those in at the same time here. And we can see I have these sprite sheets now. They're going to look like something like this, and yours will be very similar. So as is, we're going to need to do a little bit of modifications, but I'm just going to get things organized here because we could start to fill up. I'm just going to open up, create a new folder, and call it artwork. Okay, and then I'm going to grab those 4 sprite sheets for my animations and pop it in there. I'm also going to make another new folder, and we're going to call this scripts. So we're going to store that in there. And we're going to try and stay a little bit more organized as we move through the project. Okay, let's open up our artwork. And if I take a look at each of these, we're going to need to change some settings. Now, depending on the size of your sprites, these are all 32 by 32 pixels, and that's the units I'm going to be working with. My tile map as well. It's really common. Some people might work with 16 by 16 or maybe higher, but I find this to be a really good starting point. So we're going to take all 3 of these. So I'm going to select all of them at the same time. And we need to modify them a little bit. So first, we need to modify from sprite mode from single, because this is not a single image. It is a sprite sheet. So we're going to make it multiple. And the pixels per unit is really important. So 1 unit in Unity, okay, as we move objects around on the transform, is kind of represents 1 meter. And on this screen, each of these squares we can see in the grid is 1. So we want to always pixels per unit to match the artwork. It's pixels per unit. So we're going to match that with 32. And this is really going to be important when we start to do our tile map and everything so that the pixel size matches, so it's not blurry or much bigger in some positions. We're going to keep most things the same here. We're going to go down, instead of bilinear though, we're going to make sure we switch that to point, no filter. That'll make sure it doesn't blur out anything because we're using pixel art. And the compression, we want to just leave that as none. And once I've done all those, you do have to hit apply, which is right here. So we'll hit apply. It'll modify all these sprite sheets at the same time for us. So here they all are. They're all set to multiple, and we're going to now cut these up. So we're going to take each of these and we need to slice it. So we go to a sprite editor, it's called. So we click that. And here we are, we can see all my sprites a lot bigger now. And we're going to slice this up so we can use this and turn it into my death animation. So I'm going to click this slice option here. And from automatic, we want to go grid by cell size. And again, we want to modify this to be 32 by 32. And once we do that, we can see everything is slicing nicely. We're going to apply that now, press apply, and now we can see I've got this little play button beside it, and it's split it into all of its little individual frames. So we're going to need to do the same thing with each of these. So I'm going to grab the idle bot, again, slice. It's already saved with the same slice as before, and apply. onto the jump bot, slice, slice, apply, and finally the running animation. We're going to slice that as well and then apply. Okay, we've brought our artwork in, we've modified the settings on it to work with what we want to do. So now if I take my player here, and I'm just going to go and grab the idle, okay? And you're not going to pull, I can't pull this whole thing on top. It's just going to, well, it would let me, but it's just going to take the first image here, the first frame, the idle bot underscore 0. So we can pull that onto our sprite renderer now, and we'll notice that it's definitely, I don't want red, and that's because I changed the color before. So let's put that back to white, and it's going to show up with the correct colors rendered there, which is a lot nicer. Okay, and we got to make some modifications here. First of all, we definitely don't need this black mask that I made temporarily, so I'm going to delete that. Our ground check needs to be repositioned. If we leave it there, our little bot's going to be floating everywhere. So I'm going to move that up right to the bottom of their feet. And now we're going to also modify the collider. Again, if I were to play this right now, I would be floating on top of the platform. So we're going to go and our capsule colliders right here. You might be using a circle or a square collider. I'm going to click Edit Collider, and we're going to bring this up to his feet, and it's always, whoops, let's get back there. And it's always good to have a collider just slightly inside your sprite. Okay, so I'm just going just a little bit inside. If I zoom in a little more here, you can see I'm just a little bit inside on all sides here. Okay, and that gives us a little bit of a grace when we, especially if we have some enemies that we're trying to avoid. So that should work pretty good. So let's give this a test now that I brought this in. It won't animate whatsoever yet, but I'll be moving my little robot around, but it should flip the sprite when I change directions. So we'll give this a shot and see what the jump looks like for a smaller sprite that we have now. So we're in play mode here. There's my little sprite running around. And so that's the jump. And again, if I just tap it, okay, I can do little jumps. See if I can do a little jump and stay underneath that platform. Pretty hard to do. But yeah, this is working good. So let's try to animate this. Obviously, it's just a single sprite and it's not animating whatsoever. So we got to create our animations. Now, we're going to go back to our player here, and we're going to be adding what's called an animation, okay? Or sorry, an animator. An animator, here it is here, is going to allow us to control the animations, okay? So we're going to access this animator through code in the next episode. But for now, we got to create these animations. So let's see how we're going to do this. So you're going to go up to Window, and you're going to go down until you get to animation, and this is where we want to have an animation. So it's going to pop open this window, and for me, I kind of like to have it, we're going to move the game window actually so we can't see the game window right now, and let's do that. Bring this down because we need to be able to see what's going in our animation window here. Okay, so now it says what to do to begin animating player, create an animation clip. So let's give it a shot. All right, so it's asking us where do you want to save our animations. So we're not going to save it in artwork. We're going to go into assets. We're going to create a new folder here again, and we're going to call this animations. Okay, so we're going to have one spot to store all of those. And it looks like I already made this in my previous when I was practicing this tutorial. So let's just put it right where we have it. I'm going to delete all those because we're going to make this from scratch. All right, so this one, the one I've just, we're going to choose to create first, we're going to do the idle bot. Okay, so this one we're going to call idle bot. And right now it's just empty. It is when you're when you're creating this animation here, it's defaulted to, it might default to seconds or it might default to frames depending. I like to use frames. I find it a little easier to work with. So we're going to drag in this, and if I drag in the sprite sheet, it's not going to work. It's only going to give me a single keyframe, which is not what we want. We actually got to open this up and grab all looks like, what do we have there? 8 frames. So we're going to pull in all 8 frames there. And if I press play, it's going to work, but it's going to be going really fast. And you can see that here, my animation is a little too fast for me. So I'm going to grab this. I'm just going to stretch out my animation till it's nice and even. We can try 28 frames and see what we think. Still a little bit fast for that to be looping. I'm going to try going all the way to 60 and see how that looks. I kind of like that as the idle. It's just kind of bobbing, his eyes are blinking, and I think that frame rate's going to work for me. Okay, so we got our first animation ready to go. Now we're not using it at all, but it actually will be the default animation for now. Let's get our other animations done. So we're going to click on here. We have our idle bot animation. We're going to create new clip, and this one we're going to call it the run bot. Okay. So our run bot, we're going to save that. And we see we have an empty set of frames here again. So we're going to go to my run bot, which is this one here. Grab these frames, pull it in. And again, I think I'm going to stretch this, try this at 30 and see how it looks for our running. That might work. I think that's probably a pretty good speed. We might need to speed it up based on, now this is what you're going to want to tweak due to your player speed. So that might be a little bit better. Let's get my keyframes. So again, if you misclick here, I can highlight and grab the whole thing like that. Let's try it at 25. I think we'll leave it at that for now. We might want to tweak that based on our movement speed. But that works for now. Let's now add our jump animation. So we're going to create new clip, and we're going to call this jump bot animation. Okay, so now we're going to grab our jump, and there's quite a few frames for this one. Bring that in, stretch this one out right to 60 and see how it looks. Okay, so not quite fast enough. With my animation that I created here, I do have a few frames that I might want to happen faster. And then there's several frames of just the feet being lifted. So I'm going to see how this looks once. We might want to tweak it later on. But I'm going to maybe tighten up a couple of these initial frames right here. And then these ones can be stretched out more. But again, you can play around with this to get the feeling. So it's a bit of a quicker jump, and then it holds that. So I might grab these here and just stretch those out even longer for my jump. Okay, I think I like that. And last one we'll do is our death animation. Now we don't have anything that can hurt us yet in this video game, but we will eventually. So we'll call this one Death Bot. Okay. Save this, and let's grab that animation. Here we go. And this one I might want to slow down a little bit for sure, but let's stretch it out to 60 and see how it looks. So it lays down, closes its eyes, and loses its color. Now it's obviously not going to loop. That's how the animation's going to look. And I'm going to leave that as is. I think they look good right now. So now if we game test this right here, we're only going to have our idle animation playing, because we're going to have to go into the animator and with code change these animations when they are active, when they're not. But now you can kind of see this is just my idle, and it looks pretty good for now, but we're going to be tweaking this for sure as we move forward. So that's my little idle, but we're not running, we're not jumping, and there's nothing that can hurt us, so we'll have to test that in a little bit. But that's going to be in the next episode. So we've imported our art, we have created our animations, and next up we are going to dive into the animator, which is this other window. If we go under animation and go to animator, and this is the one we're going to be working with. It's right here, and we can see it's actually running the idle as we speak. So we're going to dive into how to use this in the next episode. See you next time.